Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Throne of Seal based on novel. So let's start. At the current time, they were completely different from their younger selves. Before the Holy War, they encountered such powerful foes that they had to perfect their formations for survival, putting safety as the top priority. But they already had the strength to assume complete responsibility for themselves. Gathering together to fight against enemies of this level would only impede their fighting strength. At that very moment, Haoyue once again showed a whole new face. In the midst of low-voiced chaotic incantations, Little Flame made the first move, causing 6 flames to flash through. Including Long Houchen inside, the 6 individuals rushing out were covered with a protection of fire. These protections reached about 3 meters diameter, glinting in dark red radiance, but without affecting their movements in the least. Outside the protections, the panther demons facing them would feel extreme heat. The weaker ones had their hairs scorched even from a distance. Little Green was the second one. He added up the acceleration technique's boost to everyone. As green light flickered under everyone's feet, their bodies became visibly more nimble. Immediately following, 2 immense halos encompassing the whole stage dispersed, all aimed at the enemy. The 9th Holy Guard's gravity technique was mimicked in Little Yellow's incantations, and the extremely fast panther demons immediately felt full of chills, greatly restricted. Another glow came out from Little Yellow, emitting simple fluctuations of light, and providing even more holy aura as a supplement, which impressively weakened the panther demons utilizing darkness attribute. Little Purple and Little Blue were both in the midst of chanting, seemingly requiring some more time to be done. But without a doubt, the power of a chant would increase with its length. As another mage, Lin Xin was dumbstruck while standing on Haoyue's back. The current Haoyue was like 6 saint magic tutors of the 8th step fighting shoulder to shoulder. From the beginning of his attacks to his current global boosts, his strength was domineering. And each head had its own frightening intelligence. 6 intelligent beings in one body, able to harmonize with such perfection. Just what kind of magical beast could that be? Chen Ying's shock was not below Lin Xin's in the least. Gaining the effects from Haoyue's boosts, Long Houchen's group of 6 was already fighting the enemy at close quarters. Long Houchen's powerful strike was really just too fierce. Let alone those panther demons of the 6th step, in front of his sword's rain even golden panther demons could only draw back rapidly, resisting with all their strength. In a flash of blood color, one panther demon of the 6th step, after another was crushed in front of sword's rain. Their passive defense was useless in front of its power, while the golden panther demons could only barely defend themselves. Counterattacking would hardly be possible. The only intent of these panther demons' resistance was precisely to spend their quite resilient strength along with their own spiritual power, to do their utmost to use up sword's rain's power. But even so, Long Houchen's sword not only breached their attempts, but even left corpses of over 30 panther demons. With sharp bellows, just as sword rain's power declined, the 2 golden panther demons surrounded Long Houchen's sides like bolts of lightning. Their sharp claws had already turned dark gold as they frantically attacked him. But just at this time, another heavy sword had appeared in Long Houchen's left hand. A jadeite-like dark green gloss flashed in a glint and dispersed a greenish-gold luster, enveloping Long Houchen inside and concealing his figure under its shining illumination. In a series of crisp, melodious tones, the 2 golden panther demons were blasted back simultaneously, as tiny ruptures were left on their naturally extremely tough claws. Long Houchen's figure flashed forward once again, paying no heed at all to them. Lightspeed Flash was launched, instantly exceeding the golden panther demon's speed. Overbearingly rushing into the ranks of the grand panther demons, he burst out with dark green and orange dual-colored radiances, turning into a bladestorm engulfing the whole crowd. A terrifying attractive force pulled the surrounding grand panther demons. These ordinarily extremely valiant demons were torn to shreds, just like fruits, turning into fine particles of blood and flesh. The 2 golden panther demons were totally unable to stop Long Houchen. In front of a bladestorm of such level, they didn't even have the courage to rush in. Just then in other areas the intense smell of slaughter was bursting out. Kia's attacks were the most simple and direct. Simple grey arcs were traced in her hand's path, as the sickle of the god of death's grey after image brought death and annihilation, while greatly purifying darkness. Compared to Long Houchen and Caia, Han Yu and Zhong Fangfang were visibly behaving as expected. The 2 of them had a huge shield in one hand and a heavy sword in the other one, charging their way out. Although their killing power was unable to compare with the vice-captain, the two of them showed invulnerable defense. At every strike, deaths would follow. As guardian knights they visibly showed some restraint, prepared at any time to rescue their comrades. The real spotlight was one Wang Yuanyuan and Sima Xian, who joined in total slaughter. Wang Yuanyuan's eyes turned blood red, seeming just like the time she was resisting the demon army in the warrior temple. The blood in her was already boiling profusely, and in her hand, Bloodstorm let out a drizzling red brilliance with terrible offensive strength, as the gigantic divine soul shield became her long-ranged weapon. Everywhere she passed, demons were blown to pieces. A faint bloody aura was emitted from her body, and upon its sight, or when crossing eyes with Yuanyuan, all demons had the feeling of losing all their guts. That was the terrifying bloody murderous spirit Wang Yuanyuan nurtured in the battlefield. Walking through seas of corpses, she caused incountable demons to perish under her weapon Bloodstorm. Entering the state of battle, she emitted a tyrannical aura of slaughter, as if it was a matter of course. Bloodcut and bloody dance were used alternately. Adding to that the power of her spiritual stove of spatial gate, she instantly drilled through the most packed areas to let her slaughter unfold. In just a few instants, the Grand Panther demons she killed were not below Long Haochen in the slightest. Although Wang Yuanyuan is a girl, she currently showed no trace of pity. On the other side, Sima Xian also showed an extremely tyrannical display. This guy may not be able to instantly transport himself in the midst of the enemy's ranks like Wang Yuanyuan, but his destructive power was even higher. Flapping the wings on his back, Sima Xian lit in pure golden splendor. Like a piece of metal being cast, his face and skin turned gold-colored. One could faintly see that gold color being dispersed from his chest. A golden panther demon went on his way, attempting to stop him by the means of a global encirclement with the help of the other Grand Panther demons, but at this time, Sima Xian lifted the terrifying gigantic ball of light in his hand. To one's astonishment, the energetic ball of light actually let out the orange radiance characterizing equipment of epic tier, which immediately turned purple. Myriads of purple lightning bolts instantly burst out, bombarding the panther demons. Even that golden panther demon was unable to make a narrow escape, and had to put his all in defending. The speed of lightning made it absolutely unable to escape. Therefore, a panther demon's speed became a useless specialty. These lightning bolts burst managed to take in over 100 panther demons, which became all scorched, with all their hair standing straight, and at least having sustained fatal injuries, if not yet dead. Immediately, Sima Xian flung his energetic ball of light, but unlike the energetic ball of light of the past, it had now a dark, gold-colored chain on its tail, looking quite thin, about a little finger's width, but reached an astonishing length of 10 meters. His series of attacks left actually totally emptied his side of panther demons. In fact, the Grand Panther demons that had rushed into the hall totaled only 5 or 600, forming the entirety of the Panther Demons' elites. The 9 Golden Panther Demons at their lead were the most tyrannical ones of the whole Panther Demon clan, but in a few instants, over 200 Grand Panther Demons and 4 Golden Panther Demons, which is close to half of them, just perished. Sima Xian's terrifying area of effects rapidly overtook the others in the slaughtering count. Even Long Haochen's prowess was masked behind his. Lin Xin and Chen Yinga looked at each other, filled with dumbstruck feelings. Just when did Sima get that strong? Wasn't his spiritual energy the weakest of all of us, but that terrifying tyrannical power just now left them in shock. Even a panther demon of the 8th step was unable to withstand a single blow from him. How did our Baldai become so awesome? Chen Yinga asked in shock. Lin Xin twitched the corners of his mouth. He was really believing himself to have made extremely rapid progress in these 2 years, but from the looks of it, all of them made similar gigantic progress. Chen Yinga was so, and Sima Xian and Wang Yuanyuan were also so. This guy seems unafraid of the backlash of the godly purple thunder spiritual stove. What he has just used should be an advanced ability of the spiritual stove. And that gigantic ball of light, when did it turn out to reach the epic tier? His fearlessness toward the godly purple thunder spiritual stove should be related to that gold color. How come his equipment improved so dramatically? When did the priest temple become so rich and overbearing? Careful, Sima. In the midst of the enemy's ranks, Long Haochen shouted suddenly. Right at this instant, a dark red figure appeared in the battlefield without warning, heading for Sima Xian. A dark red brilliance seemed to arise, turning into a panther's shape aiming a strike on Sima Xian's chest. From hearing Long Haochen's warning, Sima Xian understood that this was the sudden attack of an enemy surely far above himself in strength, and able to threaten his life. Otherwise, Long Haochen wouldn't say that. In fact, Long Haochen had been closely following this enemy's presence all this time, planning to attract his attention with his display of strength. But who would have expected Sima Xian's destructivity to even exceed his, altering the enemy's target, and catching Long Haochen unprepared? Sima Xian's eyes suddenly lit up as he lifted the gigantic ball of light, placing it in front of his own chest. A fantastic scene appeared, as a sort of eye opened on it, forming a large arc of purple lightning exploding loudly. Immediately afterwards, countless purplish-green poisonous spheres were launched to all directions. These spheres only reached the size of eyes, and landed onto each eye's sculptures, turning them into the same color, as the panther demons inside were melted in the midst of that purple-green color. Long Haochen's previous shout functioned as a summons, and at the same time he appeared in front of Sima Xian. Han Yu and Zhong Fangfang rushed from the two sides, with Wang Yuanyuan coming from the rear. Qia's figure also disappeared in the midst of her invisibility. Long Haochen was now extremely shocked, not because of the enemy's sudden surprise attack, but by Sima Xian's strength. Long Haochen had clearly sensed the strength of the enemy's previous attack, but didn't expect Sima Xian to resist it, not only ending up totally unwounded, but also not even pushed back in the slightest. That was an enemy reaching the 9th step of cultivation. This time, their enemy came to everyone's sight, a 2 meters tall panther demon dispersing intense dark red flames. Compared to the other panther demons, his build wasn't particularly different, but the dark red flames surrounding his body in a very sticky state, as well as his shiny dark red hairs, were distinct proofs of his identity. Panther demon god Orgzer. Long Haochen shouted the question stentorianly. That's right, that powerful panther demon was their chief, the panther demon god Orgzer protecting the Yale province. Although Orgzer was bursting with rage in front of that scene, he didn't lose all control due to anger by the enemy's strong surprise attack, right against the panther demon palace. Hao Yue's entrance in the panther demon palace roused him up from his previous state of cultivation, but his arrival was clearly quite late. Seeing the frantic slaughter of Long Haochen's group, especially Sima Xian's last display, he found it far too tyrannical. Therefore, he chose after slight considerations to ambush Sima Xian, getting rid of their most powerful attacker. But he didn't know that Long Haochen's group was linked through the soul-sharing chains. Even if Sima Xian hadn't resisted his attack like that, to inflict fatal wounds to Sima Xian would be impossible thanks to its sharing. A dark red pillar abruptly surfaced in the palace's backyard, and its thick body gradually took shape. This thick demon god pillar was decorated with countless panther demons engravings, and dark red flames rose violently from it. To deal with this panther demon god, Long Haochen couldn't possibly bring him in the Tower of Eternity for assassination like with the demon god of deep vision. The last time, some strange phenomenon had happened between the demon god's powerful innate ability and the eternal melody's transporting ability. But to transport such a powerful demon god without his consent would be basically impossible. How could the counterpart show no struggles? But Long Haochen never imagined to face a situation like the current one, where he felt absolute confidence in vanquishing a demon god in front of him. And that confidence was due to the fact he was not fighting by himself, but had all these powerful teammates at his side. Sima Xian's tyrannical offense confirmed to him that in these 2 years, every one of his comrades had made considerable progress. As a whole, they already had the strength to resist a demon god head-on. After the battle against the dragon rider demon god, Long Haochen faintly felt that if they were only facing Asmodeus, the addition of his comrades and his full strength may perhaps match Asmodeus. But because of Asmodeus' demon god transformation and domain, Long Haochen didn't take the risk, out of fear of following the same road as Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi. But now they were facing a demon god in the 5th dozen of the ranking, 57th ranked demon god Orgzer. He had already resolved himself to take a demon god's life today. We are the demon hunt squad Bright Glimmer of Hope, and I am the captain Long Haochen. I am telling you our name, so that you can die contentedly. Yinger, go. Long Haochen declared, and let his words be heard by all panther demons present since his objective was originally to expose his tracks. Hearing Long Haochen's order, Chen Yinger immediately sat cross-legged on Hao Yue's back and started to chant. She obviously understood what their captain meant. They were to go all out to handle the panther demon god, so her mission would be to stop any interference in the battle of Long Haochen and the others. Lin Xin's incantation also started. His line of sight was focused onto the panther demon god Orgzer, and this time, Hao Yue was very settled, coldly watching the surroundings with his 6 large heads. After suffering the joint attack from Little Blue and Little Purple, the Panther Demon's elites had already lost 70% of their troops, and the rest were not in good condition. Now they were clearly shrinking back in fear, and the outside of the Panther Demon Palace was extremely noisy. Visibly, a large amount of Panther Demons had rushed in, but all were certainly unable to compare with the previous Panther Demon's elites. The Panther Demon God Orgzer let out a howl of fury, and the dark red flames on him started boiling like a volcanic eruption. As he shot out, Orgzer's muscles expanded greatly with the influence of the dark red pillar, exceeding 3 meters in the blink of an eye. His pair of sharp claws grew by over 1 meter in length as well. After having just completed Demon God transformation, Orgzer suddenly became sluggish. Although he didn't sustain any wounds from that white glow, he suddenly felt an imperceptible danger from the unblockable white glow entering into contact with him. After raising his head to give it another look, he found out that he could only see Long Houchen in front of him. That was ability of the Saint Spiritual Stove, from that golden figure which was certainly Yating. The Panther Demon God Orgzer was the Panther Demon's commander, so his strength couldn't exceed a Panther Demon's limits, at most is a reinforced version. From the scene when he attacked, it could be determined that speed was its greatest specialty. After all, what did it mean that his wings unexpectedly shrank after Demon God transforming? His wings turned into bent wings, which means that it was majorly boosting its speed. Which is to say, after Demon God transforming, Orgzer's speed would really be greatly strengthened. Long Houchen's fighting experience was really plentiful, enabling him to determine Orgzer's most troublesome aspect immediately. If his speed was left to be used fully, their side's battle formation would certainly be broken through. At that time, the battlefield could only become the Panther Demon God's one-man stage. But Long Houchen had his own ways. The Saint Spiritual Stove is really the bane of speed-specialized demons. Even if you can go even faster, your target can only be me, and you cannot attack anyone else. Which means that your speed will only be directed against me, and as long as I don't get killed, you won't be able to deal with any other ... Although Long Houchen was directing the whole pressure at himself, at the same time he weakened the Panther Demon God most effectively. In his left hand, Blue Rain, Hibiscus of Light was drawn out. In a flash of golden light on his back, the holy aura on Long Houchen's body immediately rose hastily as Yating directly fused into him, making his spiritual energy even more pure, and raising it enormously. Holding the divine snail shield of sun and moon in front of him, Long Houchen didn't spare any spiritual energy, pouring it all inside this shield of divine tool grade. He didn't have the slightest thought of competing against Orgzer in terms of speed. In front of a speed-specialized demon god of the 9th step, choosing to compete in their field of dominance was absolutely no wise choice. What's more, he had no need to do so. All he would need would be to defend unwaveringly, not give the enemy any chance, and no more. The rest would all be left to his comrades. In a state of panic from getting struck by the Saint Spiritual Stove, the Panther Demon God burst out in dark red radiance, and abruptly arrived in front of Long Houchen like a dark red streak of light. Its 2 massive claws tore through the air with a hiss as they were swept at Long Houchen. After repelling Long Houchen with his strike, Orgzer was startled as well. As a demon god, he naturally sensed the real level attained by Long Houchen's cultivation. Although the equipment on him was really top-notch, that was still no more than a knight of the 8th step. He was obviously confident to not get killed when the gap in cultivation was so wide. Moreover, he was already in the state of demon god transformation, giving a qualitative boost to both his internal and external spiritual energy. Even a demon god in the top 50 would not be his opponent if they don't use demon god transformation, especially when Orgzer's specialization is his attack. His attack was very powerful, but he was facing the divine snail shield born from a starlight divine beast, and one that reached the divine tool rank in Long Houchen's hands. It was not because it wouldn't be able to stop Asmodeus' attack that Long Houchen didn't use the divine snail shield against him, but because its spiritual energy consumption was just too high, preventing it from being used for too long, which was no good for such a prolonged battle. At that time, he couldn't even afford to use Yating's help to have his spiritual energy boosted, as he had to conserve Yating's force to boost the aria of the Goddess of Light. But the current situation was absolutely different. Long Houchen was not by himself, having so many comrades on his side. His mission was to stop the Panther Demon God's attacks, and direct all of them on himself. For that, there was no better choice than the divine snail shield of sun and moon. The shield of divine tool rank paired with divine obstruction would feel, even to someone at his level of demon god, like an unsurpassable barrier, as long as Long Houchen's spiritual energy wasn't close to exhaustion. Orgzer's move was unsuccessful, but his terrifying power still came to view. The effects of the Saint's spiritual stove made him unable to target others, but didn't stop him from feeling the massive threat brought by the others. In a flashing sidestep, he evaded like a bolt of lightning, and aimed his claws at Long Houchen's direction. He knew that as long as this knight died, he would be able to deal with the others. But as the Panther Demon God was making his move, the members from Bright Glimmer of Hope arrived. 2 red glints landed on Orgzer at the same time as his speed went up even further, but came to a sudden stop for a blink of an eye right on the instant he launched his last attack. These 2 red glows were from Zhong Fang Fang and Han Yu's lock ability. While locking on the Panther Demon God, Han Yu activated his spiritual stove of light blessings, while wild scarlet blood in his right hand was swept violently at Orgzer. The spiritual stove of light blessings was without doubt mostly activated for Long Houchen's sake, gathering more spiritual energy to back up his defense. Whether wild scarlet blood would manage to wound the Panther Demon God was not even a matter he concerned himself about. Zhong Fangfang's attack was very heavy, relying on Locke to gather the spiritual energy in his body on his shield as shield strike was launched. A dense light essence instantly rose, striking the Panther Demon God from the side. Orgzer's speed was really something. Despite being under the effects of the 2 knights' lock ability, its attack still slipped through to their side. The assault of the 2 Guardian Knights of the 7th step only affected his speed a bit at most. But this instant, an overflowing bloodlust was directed at Orgzer. That strength was nothing in Orgzer's eyes, but the aura of slaughter contained in that bloodlust caused him to have uncontrolled chills, as his attacking speed decreased once again further. The terrible weapon of legendary tier, Bloodstorm, produced a terrifying might, while unleashing Bloodcut alongside Bloodsaw Wild Dance. An attack of such a large scale was already impossible for Orgzer to avoid. Orgzer let out a howl, terrifying might ascending in the shape of dark red flames from his body, and turning into countless panther skulls bombarding all directions. He thought it well, although he was affected by Long Houchen, launching area attacks would be no issue. This knight aside, how could the other humans resist his full power attacks after blocking the Demon God transformation? But he had looked down too much on the post-transformation Saint Spiritual Stove. From the time it was initially offered to Long Houchen by his father Xingyu, it had evolved several times. Among the lot were Yating's fusion with the Spiritual Stove as well as the absorption of the crystal left by the Demon God of Deep Vision. The instant following the appearance of those countless flaming skulls, the multidirectional bombardment that was expected didn't happen, as all of it was redirected towards Long Houchen by a mystical attractive force. The current Long Houchen was wrapped under the cover of the multicolored golden shield wall since long ago. With the boost of the spiritual stove of light blessings, the time Long Houchens could use the divine snail shield certainly increased tremendously. Moreover, he had the spiritual energy backup of Yating and the golden foundation armor. Violent clashes resounded without pause on the shield wall, but it wasn't able to cause the divine snail shield to sway in the slightest. An Orgzer's mistake caused him to have to sustain the enemy's attacks. Bloodstorm's attack was the first to come, simultaneously pairing Bloodcut and Bloodsaw Wild Dance, turning into many wind blades cutting on his swelling skin. A gaudy bloodlight burst out from these cuts, causing Orgzer to shout violently despite that after being Demon God transformed, his body's resistance was greatly enhanced. After all, he was not a Demon God expert in defense. In addition, Bloodstorm was a piece of legendary equipment putting emphasis on offensive power. Immediately, a large bloody cut was left on his back. The cut inflicted by Bloodstorm was going from the right shoulder to the rib, and although it wasn't deep, it was a real wound on his body. Furthermore, after Bloodstorm infected the Demon God's body, a mysterious change happened. The original blood-red radiance suddenly turned into an orange color. Such a change from the slaughter weapon improved the cutting force even further as Bloodstorm struck through Orgzer's back. The fierce murderer's spirit greatly affected his defense. Wan Yuan also had an expression of pleasant surprise as Orgzer was forced to shift direction, attacking Long Houchen's shield wall frantically. She couldn't help but glance at her Bloodstorm. She immediately found out with a shock that the trace of orange radiance was spreading over the sawtooth blade at frantic speed, as an incomparably murderous spirit burst out. To be precise, Bloodstorm was evolving. Originally a blade of slaughters, it was baptized under the blood of countless enemies in the fire of war. You could leave as is, though unusual, or with just too much blood, Bloodstorm had turned a blood-red color long ago. And now that it became infected again, Though now with the blood of a demon god under demon god transformation, it finally reached its last threshold. This killing weapon finally reached a terrifying realm. The panther demon god Orgzer tried with great difficulty to keep evading Wang Yuanyuan's attacks while attacking Long Haochen, but the imposing shields on his two sides delayed him greatly while he was beaten, due to Han Yu and Zhong Fangfang. However, the panther demon god was after all a powerhouse of the 9th step. Despite being hit, he had no issue sending Han Yu and Zhong Fangfang flying. Han Yu, who had the soul-sharing chain's life-sharing, was better off. Although he was repelled, his body let out an intense glint and with the recovery from blessings of light, only sustained light wounds. Zhong Fangfang was repelled quite a lot farther, but had relatively more cultivation than Han Yu, so although his body curled up to some extent while expelling some blood, his wounds were not too important. Their blocks were for the sake of earning time for another. A massive metallic ball brazenly fell, shrouded with myriads of electric bolts covering Orgzer on the way. Orgzer shouted loudly as the dark red flame surrounding him grew further in intensity, neutralizing the purple lightning attacking him, though it didn't dispel any of it, thanks to its absorptive properties. While the purple electric light was neutralized, an immense golden ball of light was carried alongside, chasing after Orgzer. Feeling its immense threat, Orgzer raised his right hand and parried the metallic ball of light's strike. Han Yu and Zhong Fangfang were repelled, but the others shouldn't be neglected. Wang Yuanyuan immediately waved the evolved bloodstorm, and in the meantime, a grey crystal-like splendor flashed across the panther demon god's back, revealing the hidden Kia. Kia was grasping an assassin's true essence. When facing a true opponent, she didn't make her move as soon as possible, but waited for the time of maximal impact. She was waiting for an opportunity, concealed in the dark while storing power. An assassin's power storing was not as obvious of a move, but the following eruption of power was even more terrible. Wang Yuanyuan was not falling behind either. The orange radiance from Bloodstorm disappeared suddenly, and even the surges of blood surrounding her vanished. If one was close enough, he would find out that rippling halations roamed around Bloodstorm. That extreme bloodlust actually took shape, and was applied to Wang Yuanyuan's attacks. Just like Long Haochen was not an ordinary powerhouse of the 8th step, his comrades were not ordinary powerhouses of the 7th step. Kia's sickle of the god of death was the first to cut into that purple electric light. That electric light couldn't tell people apart, but as if infecting it, Kia's sickle wasn't infected by any of the electric light. First of the 7 arts of the god of death, death in childhood. In an ash-colored flash of light, Kia's figure swept past as if nothing happened. And the second hit on the panther demon god wasn't by Wang Yuanyuan, but was a strange blue-colored flame. That flame shot in a straight line to pierce through that purple body almost at the same time as death in childhood landed, as the 2 hits only differed by fractions of a second, but hit different spots. Next, Wang Yuanyuan's Bloodstorm was covered in a golden-colored blade wrapped in orange color. But how could Long Haochen take part in this feat? He was solely focusing on defense. At this time, the soul-sharing chain's life force sharing's effects came on display. Although everyone suffered more or less of the effects from the repelling backlash, the damage was shared jointly. Pam! Orgzer sank to his knees, without blood leaking from his body, but his massive body shook violently, and was shrinking rapidly. After sustaining heavy damage, he had already become unable to maintain the effects of the demon god transformation. Let alone him, even the others from Bright Glimmer of Light didn't expect themselves to be able to launch such a joint attack, all of which landed on Orgzer altogether. Long Haochen had his transparent, does this need to be capitalized sword intent from the aria of the goddess of light, Kia her art of death in childhood of the 7 arts of the god of death. Wang Yuanyuan had her materialized murderous spirit poured inside Bloodstorm. Lin Xin had Vulcan's finger alongside the Hellfire Needle. The powerful attacks of these 4 in addition to Sima Xian's energetic ball of light restrained Orgzer for a short time, while bursting out with incredible killing power. Outside of Lin Xin they all now had weapons reaching the epic tier. And even also Lin Xin had the boost from the Blue Fire Phoenix spiritual stove. Chen Ying's magic was long since terminated. The large amount of magical beasts along with Hao Yue's 6 heads tyrannically suppressed the panther demons outside the hall, who were totally unable to assist their god. At this time, none of them could do anything for him. They could only bear it for the time being. But at this time, a terrible aura of desolation arose from the panther demon god, whose vigor rose sharply. Dark red flames spiraled around him, spreading frantically to all directions. Be careful, it's the demonic collapse recovery technique. Long Haochen shouted, and immediately rushed with the divine snail shield lifted. As the captain, he had at the very moment an unshrinkable duty. The saint's spiritual stove was stimulated with no hesitation, strengthening its attracting effects. Seeing that dark red fire rushing out, Long Houchen knew that it was already impossible to stop Ogzer's great demonic collapse technique. The panther demon god was, after all, different from the devil snake god. Andromalius was only at the peak of the 8th step, and had yet to reach the 9th. But the panther demon god was a thorough powerhouse of the 9th step. The instant the great demonic collapse was activated, one could see a dark red radiance shot up behind, piercing through the hall to pour inside him. That was the amplification from the demon god pillar, the demon god pillar from a demon god of a 9th step, with a whole world of difference from those demon gods among the last 12 of the ranking. For the same reason, the fact Long Houchen managed to defeat the demon god of clear vision Crocell was greatly related to the fact the latter didn't have his demon god pillar on his side. The more powerful the demon god, the greater uses their demon god pillar would show. Long Houchen now had a very calm demeanor. Their previous joint attack was already above all expectations, but still didn't manage to thoroughly kill the panther demon god though weak in defense. The 72 demon gods were just such a powerful thing. If 2 demon gods were present here, they would surely lose today's battle. Even now, resisting the panther demon god Ogzer on the doors of death was no easy thing. At least, escaping unscathed would be a hard matter. For this reason, Long Houchen rushed forward recklessly, to earn some time for his comrades to break away from him. Even if the great demonic collapse technique was a powerful thing, that's the last resort of a demon god, combusting his own life. So, given Ogzer's current body condition, he would almost certainly die after the use of this technique. From their first battle against a demon god to now, Long Houchen and the others had yet to face a demon god's demonic collapse. So they didn't know to what extent its amplification reached. But since that was a demon god's last resort, using his life as fuel, it would certainly not be an easy thing to resist. Therefore, Long Houchen was completely certain about Ogzer's thoughts. Apart from using demonic collapse to inflict very heavy damage to their side, his other goal was to make sure that his demon god crown would be able to escape, so that at least his god position wouldn't be lost. Understanding that he had made a mistake, Long Houchen felt some regret. First because he hadn't taken his comrades enough in account, and because he was too self-confident, and didn't prepare enough room for maneuvering. If beforehand they had secured a way out before launching this battle, they could all just gather and teleport through the eternal melody, and come back after the formidable power of demonic collapse terminated. There would be no need to bear the panther demon god's last attack. As for the escape of his demon god crown, just let it go. With how you are here to destroy his demon god pillar, what use could that demon god crown have? But it was already too late to regret now. Everyone was scattered, especially Chen Yinga and Lin Xin, who were both considerably too far, so there was absolutely no way to immediately teleport everyone here away. So no matter what, all he had left to do was to block Ogzer's last attack with all his strength. Shouting in wild rage, the heavily wounded panther demon god transformed. A dark red vortex spiraled all around him at an astonishing speed, and from his original human shape, he grew to exceed 5 meters, turning into a fully dark red gigantic panther, flourishing with might, and becoming far more terrifying than the time of his demon god transformation. Long Houchen grasped the divine snail shield of sun and moon, that divine grade tool, in his hand. A great part of his spiritual energy was already depleted, so how could he respond against such a panther demon god? He faintly grasped the true meaning of demonic collapse. It was to renounce the physical body, and release the original demon might, igniting the source of his power. This wasn't anything easy to deal with. As Long Houchen was preparing himself to face the post-demonic collapse panther demon god, an enraged roar suddenly sounded out from behind him. Immediately, Long Houchen's whole body was covered in dense purple intent, and the golden foundation armor on him gained a layer of purplish gold. That purple halation coming from behind not only enveloped Long Houchen, but also the massive panther demon god. Immediately, an eerie scene followed. The dark red flame igniting Ogzer's body immediately stopped stiffly, as if water turning into ice, thoroughly stopping its burning. This change was really bizarre, causing Long Houchen to stare blankly at the panther demon god's body, losing all that burst of might, finally dissipating all at once. A dark red demon god crown losing its head out of fear then looked for an escape, but upon being wrapped by the purple halation, it immediately lost all power, and fell to the ground with a tinkling sound. Everyone in the demon hunt squad bright glimmer of hope became dumbstruck. What was that magic trick? In just a flash, the previously too domineering panther demon god just crumbled. They all looked at the emitter of that purple halation. Long Houchen was also shocked. Of course, he knew that Hao Yue had very restrictive abilities to use against demons, but he didn't expect him to be able to restrict them to such an extent. But as the captain, he couldn't stay captivated in this place. All returned to Hao Yue's back. They were valiant, but were after all only a group of 8. Over 10,000 panther demons were standing outside, enough to delay them indefinitely. So staying there would obviously put them through a harsh time. As Long Houchen spoke so, he immediately joined Sima Xian's side, carrying him by grabbing his armor, and returned to Hao Yue's back in a flash. The others followed successively. At the current time, a fantastic scene appeared around Hao Yue's body. 18 creature summoning gates were twinkling and 18 magical beasts were coming out at every twinkle, fighting at close quarters against the panther demons. This hall was vast, but seemed narrow with such battles underway. No panther demons were capable of stopping their way, especially when their demon god Orgzer had just been killed in front of their eyes, greatly hitting their morale. All were kept outside the hall by the magical beasts, ordered by Chen Yinga to guard all the exits. At the current time, she was still holding in her arms McDull, her final ace. Hao Yue, let's go look for the demon god pillar. When their last companion reached Hao Yue's back, Long Houchen immediately shouted for Hao Yue to make the next move. His 6 heads brimming with smiles, he zealously began rushing forward. Little light, little flame, little green, little blue, little purple and little yellow all launched magic bombardments, forcibly creating a passage in this hall to bring Long Houchen's group to the courtyard behind the Panther Demon Palace. Long Houchen didn't have any apprehension in demon territory. They were planning not only to kill demon gods, but moreover to shake the demon's foundations. With every demon god pillar less, the demon's roots will be shaken. And if one day they can erase all demon god pillars, the demons would perhaps be no more. Thinking so far, the whole group was brimming with great excitement. A panther demon god was nothing but the start. Twisting waves spread out, violently ramming against that golden panther demon's body. Immediately, the very rapid demon froze, seemingly slowing down and even becoming stiff. Han Yu grasped wild scarlet blood in his hand, and immediately, a golden streak of light spread out from his sword. The odd thing was that after it was released, it accurately enveloped the golden panther demon. One could clearly see the aura of darkness on the golden panther demon dull down. That was elemental obstructing halo. Han Yu actually compressed this halo's area of effect, yet strengthened its effects. Long Houchen was not the only genius in the lot. Everyone from Bright Glimmer of Light was so. A tyrannical surge of twisting waves was shot violently, seizing the opportunity to strike that golden panther demon violently, from the demonic Eye Commander's hands. In this battle, he had yet to be called out by Han Yu, just so he could suddenly make this big move. Han Yu flapped the spiritual wings on his back, and wild scarlet blood went after that golden panther demon to behead it. At his cultivation, and with the help of the demonic eye, handling a golden panther demon was no trouble, especially when holding the initiative. On the other side rushed out Zhong Fangfang, his whole body blossoming in golden color. His equipment was far from the quality of the rest of the team, but his experience was more extensive than anyone else. As the captain of a demon hunt squad who progressed to the 7th step with them, how could he be lacking in ability? Just like Wang Yuan, his cultivation reached the 5th rank of the 7th step. Only, his total of spiritual energy was just a bit inferior to her. That was because he always focused on stopping the enemies for Wang Yuan in battle, letting her have more opportunities for sparks of understandings in the midst of slaughters. But this didn't mean that his insight was inferior. Ever since joining Bright Glimmer of Hope, Zhong Fangfang frequently received some guidances from Long Houchen, making his cultivation progress of late very fast. While throwing himself at the enemy, a golden light lit up underneath him, and a 6-legged flying horse elevated himself, bearing his weight. From that 6-legged horse came out a shining flame light bursting like the sun. Zhong Fangfang grasped the heavy sword in his right hand forward, as his right arm instantly turned into a transparent brilliant golden color. Brilliant body. 7th step versus 8th step, that's a gap that can almost not be resisted without an absolute suppression in the equipment. Just like that, shield wall collapsed, but still managed to stop the golden panther demon. Just as this golden panther demon was prepared to continue his attack, it suddenly felt a feeling of heat, and unconsciously drew back. Then came to his sight innumerable golden flames surging from all directions and enveloping his body from all around. These gold-red flames were transformed from the fire blade projected earlier by Zhong Fangfang. This was his self-created ability, Sacred Fire Cage. Zhong Fangfang's mount also had the fire attribute, and although he was also able to use holy fire, this required some time of preparation. Instead, he could dissolve his mount's fire into his holy attribute, but this certainly required his match with his mount to reach a frightening level, as well as a tremendous control. The caged golden panther let out a miserable cry. That formidable combination of light and fire element felt extremely burning and corrosive to him. Zhong Fangfang lifted the heavy sword in his right arm, then a thin red light flashed from his body, launching spiritual spark. Immediately, a pure and holy white light was shot from the tip of that heavy sword, fiercely thrusting at the golden panther demon restricted by the sacred fire cage. With a loud sound, the golden panther demon bounced back to his original ground, still facing gold-red fire, causing him to shake violently. Light of Trial. A single targeted offensive spell of the 8th step learnt by both Guardian and Retribution Knights. The offensive power of Light of Trial wasn't considered really brutal, or at least not among light elemental spells of the 8th step. But it had extreme purifying effects. In other words, it would show an extremely severe might against opponents of darkness element, but would be extremely lacking against opponents of other attributes. The instant he used Spiritual Spark, Zhong Fangfang also used the ability Light of Trial, exceeding his step. In the meantime, another figure came out from his shadow. If one paid careful attention from the start of the battle, he would notice that this identically shaped figure had been riding the six-legged horse since long ago. It's just that because it stuck close to Zhong Fangfang's back all this time, that golden panther demon was unable to see it. Light of Trial was an ability of the 8th step, which Zhong Fangfang was surely unable to release instantly even when relying on Spiritual Spark. The chant was completed by this figure behind him, the other him from the unrivaled Spiritual Stove of Second Life. The version of him from the Spiritual Stove of Second Life didn't have any equipment on him, but had 80% of Zhong Fangfang's strength, but was originally unable to incant. But while going through many years of fierce battles, Zhong Fangfang completed the first evolution of his Spiritual Stove, so it had now 90% of his strength, and was able to join the spiritual energies of the two of them through Spiritual Spark, temporarily raising his cultivation to the peak of the 7th step. With the instantaneous burst of power from Spiritual Spark, Light of Trial became usable. Part 1 end here.